Hey guys, how are you? Well, I've got videoed this week, and this week I told you we were going to have a bit of a rest from the magical realists, and we were going to go and look at Alasdair Gray. So I've brought you an Alasdair Gray this week. But before we start, remember, if you want to support us, you can go to our shop where we have books and we have writing services, or you can go to our Redbubble shop where there are over 100 designs. Over 100 designs, guys. Especially Valentine's Day's coming up. We've got Valentine's Day designs on there. Anyway, if you don't want to spend any money, that's cool, man. That's cool. Just like, subscribe, comment, share. That is how you support us. So, that's the boring bit out of the way. And what is the book we're doing? Well, the book we are looking at this week is A History Maker by Alasdair Gray from 1994. Now, I mention that because I probably ought to put my hand over the cover. Oh no, I'm not monetized. I don't think it matters. Just Alasdair Gray has a lot of boobies on his books. But I don't think anyone's that offended by boobies here. Anyway, A History, I mentioned that it's 1994 because this book can be seen as a sort of a companion book to Poor Things. So I will get into that. But first I'll talk to you just about this book. So, A History Maker. A History Maker is, like Poor Things, a supposedly found document. It is purportedly non-fiction. The choice Alasdair Gray made was to do, if Poor Things is a riff on Gothic fiction, this one is a riff on utopian sci-fi. So the world of A History Maker is in the 23rd century, Earth of the 23rd century. Earth of the 23rd century is a collectivist, clan, family-based matriarchy. So it is a utopian society. The women are the ones who have the control over the society. The most powerful people in the society are actually the ones who look the least powerful of all people. They're the grandmothers. They have the collective knowledge of their society. Now, this is a society, it's called a history maker because this society sees itself as being outside of history or beyond history. The past is no longer relevant to them. They have sorted out all the big issues that we deal with in the world today. There is no poverty, there is no want, there is no one goes without. Everyone has abundant amounts of what they need. There is no repression of any kind. This is if men and women want to hook up, they hook up. Mostly, though, that hooking up is facilitated by the mothers and the aunties. So there are three levels in this society. There are the women. There are the grandmothers, who are the women beyond childbearing age. They are all called grandmother, and they are the elders of the society who have the wisdom. All the wisdom. There are the mothers or aunties who run each household, each family. They are still women of childbearing age. They are the mothers, or they're the daughters of the grandmothers, the mothers of the young ones. They are the ones who control the power plants, which are a literal plant that grows everything that is needed. So it's a gigantic collectivist eco communes that they live in. Men are part of this world, but at the same time, they have their own place, because the one thing I said that they didn't say that they don't have is war. They do have war, but war works more or less like gladiatorial contests. It is fought with not with automatic weapons, but with swords and swords and spears, that sort of thing. It is also run for entertainment and to give men who have no outlet for their aggression an outlet for their aggression. They don't fight over... There are no nation states any longer. The center of the world is the family, and the family looks after everything within itself. Technological advancements have led to this. But war is something that is used to channel male aggression that would otherwise be useless or destructive. So they fight over standards. It's treated like a football match, but a particularly brutal football match. Advanced technology means that many of these people don't die, but when the men do die, they are fed to the power plant. So much like Lanark, when the Dragonhide burst into like when the heat inside the Dragonhide bursts out and they go and they fuel the underground city, sort of like that. So it's a very different sort of world that Alasdair Gray creates. And because you will notice this is a skinny little book, it's about 223 pages in total. We get the world building not in one big hunk, but we get it as we go on. We learn these things about this world. It's not like just exposition. So the document that we have in our hand that this book purports to be is 5 days with Wat Dryup, who is one of the soldiers. His father is a general who leads a pretty much suicidal defense of their standard. After 3 days of fighting, most of the warriors have been killed, and a great many more, and mostly young ones and inexperienced soldiers remain. He does this. It is a tactic that astonishes everyone, because the wars have been fought for decades and everyone has been bored and everyone thought they'd seen everything. But he devises this way to have a draw, and the Geneva, who runs the rules of war, allows this, but they then have some conditions that change how wars will be run. What, being the most senior officer left after the war, or this latest war, which is fought on a common across 2 or 3 days, finds himself subject to female adoration, a great deal of female adoration, but he also finds himself entangled with another woman who wants to destroy this world. What Dryup is restless. Part of the reason why he is a warrior is because he is restless and bored, and he thinks that being a warrior and fighting in the wars will provide him with purpose. What he has previously tried being a starseeder, the people who live above the earth in the satellites and who are working on extraterrestrial colonies, working towards those. He chose not to become a neo-human, which is a human with an essentially immortality, but immortality that only gives one a memory of about 7 years, because every time you take the treatment, you reset. So he's not that. He is haunted by the idea of the past, which none of the others are particularly haunted by, because they live in the present. They enjoy the world that they have. The world that they have is safe and secure. But what would like, in some ways, to change this? There is something in him that wants to change this. And there is some restlessness that it turns out is also within the men. Because the men who are not warriors, discovering that their particular clan has pretty much got only boys' brigade, cadets left, and old retired officers, men who are musicians and technical wizards and who do the other kinds of work of the community, are all wanting to line up to become warriors, because they too are feeling stagnant. Which all and this starts to affect men across the globe. The older women, the grannies especially, are quite concerned by this, because this is disruptive to the world that they have. So this is not the only thing. There is also a conspiracy going on. I'm not going to spoil the story, because it really is a brilliant story to read. Now, much like Poor Things, with this book, if you don't read the end notes, you don't get the full story. So there's a preface to this book that says that these were pages written by Watt after he left, and that his mother found them stuffed behind her books in the where she lives. She has also put in explanatory notes at the end to help people understand elements of the book. But because she is living later than the events narrated in the bulk of the book, she provides the context and what actually happens. So you do have to read the whole lot. Just as you have to read the whole lot of Poor Things to fully comprehend what's happening in terms of Bella Baxter, you have to read the whole thing to fully comprehend what is happening to this collectivist utopia. Now, Alasdair Gray in this book is very, very... What looks pessimistic is actually very hopeful, and it's very interesting. Now, this one is a book about colonialism, playing off the Gothic novel. So he's taken the concept of the Gothic novel, and he is looking at colonialism, and he is looking at colonization, and he is looking at Scotland's complicity in colonization, and he's looking at how Scotland extricates itself from that complicity in colonization. So this is he's chosen the Gothic novel particularly because it is a very 19th century invention, although, as we know, her ladyship would tell you the Gothic novel originates back in the 18th century. But the Gothic novel that Alasdair Gray is looking at, he's looking at a Gothic novel like Frankenstein, not a Gothic novel like the Sicilian one that we looked at that bored everyone to tears. So he is playing with the Gothic novel in this book. In this book, because this one is talking about very 19th century things that are occurring in that earlier period, that 18th, 19th century. Colonialism is when empire is actively expanding, when the worst of colonialism is occurring. In this one, Alasdair Gray has chosen to use the sci-fi novel, because in this one he is actively talking about events of the 20th century, and one of the big literary forms of the 20th century is the sci-fi novel. You don't really have 19th century sci-fi novels till you get to the very end of the century. They are something that looks forward, and the big golden age of sci-fi is in the middle of the 20th century. So he's using the sci-fi novel, the idea of the utopia, to talk about the world he is in. What is he talking about? He is talking about war. He is talking about aggression, male aggression. He is talking about territorial aggression. And he is talking about a system of economics, especially he is talking about a system of economics that leaves people in want because of other people's greed. And he, in Scotland, is a person who is bearing a huge brunt of the austerity that was put in place in the late 70s and the early 80s under Thatcher. He is understanding a world where people are genuinely allowing a whole group of people to do without in a country that is rich. We live in a world where we could feed everybody, but we don't, because the egos and the narcissism of a small few who want to retain power mean we don't feed the world, which is a crime. It's a crime that we allow people to live in want and poverty when we have the means to not do that. So that's what he's talking about. And he's being very critical of that. And war is part of this, because the 20th century is the period of two huge world wars, of many other smaller wars, but major wars that are used to justify the impoverishment of people, that are used to justify the waste of people, that are used to dehumanize people and allow them to be considered surplus and expendable. And there's an element of that in the world that he creates in this book, because of the nature of the reorganized matriarchy. Men are expendable. They are required for procreation, but as a great many things that they could be doing are not there for them to do any longer. Their frustration, it needs an outlet, and their outlet is these fighting games, these war games that they play. And even that is becoming stale. Ironically, in the end of this, the thing that is designed to destroy the society provides these men with a way of actually serving their communities and finding fulfillment that had previously been denied them. So it's also talking about the fact that a matriarchy that looks like a patriarchy where one is on top and another is beneath is just as toxic as when it's flipped around. Even if it is not toxic in the same way, it can be just as bad. The result at the end is not a reinstatement of the old order, which is something that had been designed by the conspiracy, but a different order, not one of artificially enforced hierarchy, which is quite an interesting change. Alasdair Gray clearly has thought a lot about the world that he is critiquing, and his solution is not it's not pie in the sky. His solution to this is not one where anybody loses. If people are losing, that is precisely what he is critiquing, is an attitude whereby if I win, you have to lose. The society in the beginning of the book has not yet surpassed the win-lose, even if they have managed to channel that into a very different manner, because Watts' father creates a suicidal campaign to maintain his standard, or to lose his standard in a manner that will lead it to a draw, because he's not able to let go of the win-lose. It's being channeled into a non-societally destructive manner, but it's still within people. There is still within them, at this point, still that kernel of there's still that kernel of supremacy. There's still that kernel of supremacy of that somebody needs to be on top. Now, the fact that the matriarchy of this story has provided peace and security and stability that the previous order had not been able to do is an improvement, but by the end of this, we actually get a further improvement beyond that. So it's a very, very hopeful book. I won't tell you how it ends because I really would love you to go and read it. Read both of them. I mean, look, I'm going to be encouraging you to read just about anything Alasdair Gray anyway. But read both of them and read them together because they really are companion-y books. They do both speak about the world that we live in. Poor Things is talking about the colonial and neo-colonial worlds that we live in, whereas A History Maker is talking about the capitalist and neoliberal worlds that we have created. It's also talking very much about patriarchy and male aggression, which I think is something that is quite relevant today, as we see a lot of young men have very great difficulty in working out how they channel their energies into the world that we have now, and that a lot of bad faith actors are using this confusion to their own ends. Now, I think one of the powers of this book is that this book is written by a man. This is a man talking to other men. Not this isn't a woman talking to men. This isn't a woman coming up with some sort of idea. This is a man talking to men about a man's problems, which is something that has been emphasized, I've noticed, is that a lot of these problems cannot be solved externally. They have to be solved internally. And that is something that he talks about, because it is in part the men who help to solve their own problem. Although that their initial solution seems nightmarishly destructive, ultimately they actually manage to come together in a way that offers an actual future for everyone. So both of these books, highly, highly recommend. I will be bringing more Alasdair Gray. I have a few more. I have actually quite a few more to do. And so they'll be coming over the next however long. We do have a lot more magical realist writing, but I'm not quite certain what we will do next, because I have a lot of books in a lot of different areas that I want to bring, and I don't want to get bogged down doing just one style of book. So we might do a Natalia Calavino, we might do an Angela Carter. I'm not 100% certain what we're going to do. We might do a magical realist. So I will be back next time with something else. But that's it for this week. Check out Poor Things and A History Maker. And peace and love, guys. Peace and love. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.